Hello there, it's Zak from Debtfree. Thanks for joining me. You'll see I'm packing my bag, making sure I've got all the essentials. Yep, I'm heading off on a bit of a trip and I'm hoping you might join me. I'm leaving the comfort of home, hitting the road, and I'll be zipping off to the airport in a moment or two. Safety first. Hello there. And so as I head to the airport, find my parking, I'm looking forward to spending a few days with one of the payment distribution agents in South Africa. Now, these are the people that handle the money side of debt review. So they make sure that money from consumers gets paid on the right day, in the right amount, to the right account. And so I'm grabbing my ticket and checking my flight, thinking about all the questions I'm going to get to ask them. Payment distribution agents play such a critical role in the industry. I want to make sure that I can discuss some of the hard-hitting questions, and also I'll get to spend some time with them during one of their celebrations. And so I'm touching down in George, home of DC Partner, where I'll be heading into town and spending a couple of days talking to different members of staff. So I took a moment just to make sure I got all my stuff, and then drove into town, quick couple of minutes, and pulled up in Victoria Street at DC Partner. Now, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with them is how PDAs came into existence, what lies ahead in the future for PDAs, and also the excitement they had at the recent Debt Review Awards. And if time allows, I'm hoping to dive into the subject of fees. And all of that starts with Mr. Herman Joubert.
I'm Herman Joubert. I'm the Chief Executive of DC Partner PDA. I am very happily married, and I've got two beautiful children. The name DC Partner stands for Debt Counselor Partner. We see ourselves as a partner to the people that we work with, not only as a service provider, but as a partner. And I think the way things have developed over the years solidified that position. DC Partner provides debt counselors with the systems to enable them to easily set up consumer debt rearrangement plans. We provide them with a mechanism to get those plans to the payment distribution agent. We assist them with setting up payment channels for their consumers. We provide them various sorts of reporting. So I think in terms of the process, we provide an extremely valuable service to them that will enable them to effectively run their businesses. I think it's a good idea that the consumers have the choice of how they want to manage their finances. There are a lot of benefits by using the PDAs. You know that the funds are getting to the credit providers. We make sure that those funds are allocated correctly. We make sure that those funds are flagged correctly on the credit provider side. We give statements the funds are secure in trust accounts. So I would never tell a consumer you have to, but I think given what we offer them, the benefit of you using a PDA outweighs the rigmarole of trying to make those payments yourself on a monthly basis. My parents actually moved down to George when I was in standard 9, what's that, grade 11 these days, and we made the decision at that time that me and my sister will come with them instead of sticking around in the Free State. So I worked for the sheriff of the court here in George, so already at that point we got a lot of exposure with regards to the not so nice side about debt. I've seen real struggle from people who are in dire straits financially, and when the opportunity came to work, on the other side where you can assist people and help them get out of that situation before it's detrimental, it gives a lot of job satisfaction. And from there, the opportunity came up when this PDA was started. I started as a training agent, and I moved around the country training all the DCs for about 2 years. Then I moved into the inquiries department, sat around there for a while, and then an opportunity came up to become the general manager of the business. which I did from 2014 until 2018, when I applied for the position of chief executive and got it. And here we are today. Luckily, it didn't start off with all the responsibility, kind of grew into it. And what was nice, when I came in the industry, it was only going for like 2 years. So when I got here, we only had like 20 clients, 6 staff members, 1 office. I think initially it was our intention to not go as large a scale as I don't think we believed that the industry would go to the extent that it has. I think everyone thought the model was going to follow suit of what happened in Canada and the UK, where there were large companies that were dealing with most of the consumers. But I think the way that the Act was written, it gave the opportunity for many individuals to come into the fold and become debt counsellors. So when we started in 2008, I think there was 15 or 20 clients that were immediately on board when I joined the company. And then it just exploded exponentially. I think one of the reasons why our book specifically grew to the extent that it did is the fact that we were the only guys that had an online system. So we were web-based. And I think that gave access for the debt counsellors to the information quickly and effectively, which saw our business grow exponentially. And obviously all the PDAs and the systems have followed suit, and everything's online now. But I'm proud to say we were the market leaders in taking these systems online, and we had nothing, no template to go on. You had to look at what was available in the Act in 2009, and I mean, that really wasn't sufficient to run a proper debt counselling business. So on the fly, we had to continuously develop our systems. In 2014, we took in some external partners that assisted us from an IT perspective, because up till that point everything was dealt with internally with 1 or 2 developers, and we quickly identified that development on the systems and the maintenance of that was going to be a big driver in our industry, and along with that a lot of automation. So since 2014-15, the focus has been to bring everything online, to make the systems automated as possible. Because in the beginning, as you can imagine, dealing with thousands of payments a month, it was extremely manually intensive. The banks, didn't expect the volumes that they were going to see. We had to physically upload payments to FNB's online banking platforms manually in CSV schedules on a daily basis. So a lot of development went into automating a lot of the processes. And I think, with the responsibility that we have in dealing with consumer funds, automation also ensures, safety of funds, which is very important. So as you can imagine, we had over 75 staff at one point during 2016, 2015. And we maintained that up until 2018, 2019, when we were in a position with automation to start. We did not, and I think we took that the position from a moral perspective. We were not starting to do wholesale retrenchments. We were, as staff, as you know, staff naturally churn through the business. As staff went away, we just didn't appoint new staff members.
It's true. I've known many of the DC Partner people for a really long time, and for a technology-based company, they do seem very people-oriented.
We put a huge value on human interaction. Although we automate our processes, we still want someone on the other end of the line to speak to our clients and our stakeholders. And that's a decision I think we took from a shareholder's perspective, just to say we do not ever want to lose that human side of our business. When someone picks up a telephone, we want them to get to someone. When you send an email, you want someone to respond. We don't want generic call centers and random email addresses. We want our debt counsellors to know who they're working with, the person in the office, what do they look like, what their name is, and this is the person that's going to work with them.
I am Louise Reinecke. I am situated at DC Partner Head Office in George. I'm a Client Relations Manager, currently for the past 7 years. Prior to that, I was part of the FinWise development team. So I'm heading the relations team here at DC Partner, continuously improving and keeping up the service delivering to our debt counsellors. So we strongly believe in building relationships with all our clients. Every debt counsellor have a dedicated client relations officer here at DC Partner that oversee their portfolio. They get to know the debt counsellor as well as the team. the operations of the debt counselling firm and how they can service them best. And then a very important role is that debt counsellor have access to management here at DC Partner. So no task is too big or too small for us to attend to.
Unfortunately, 2020 happened, and with the pandemic, we were forced to expedite all the plans we had for future development and automation, and everything went towards full automation of the system. And the bulk of the staff that we do keep on staff now are more relationship centered, which is a core principle of our business. And I think that builds trust, and to have that trust from our clients' perspective is worth far more than having a minimal staff count and you're working with people that you don't know. Again, that to me, that trust needs to be there when you're working with, billions of rands.
Okay, my name is Susan van Oudtshoorn, and I'm fortunate to live in the beautiful Western Cape. About 13 years I emigrated from Gauteng, and I have years of experience in the financial sector, so that enabled me to understand the debt review process and the need thereof. As HOD, it is my responsibility to ensure that my team allocate, distribute and pay creditors according to the company policy and according to the SLA agreement that we have with the NCR. It's very important for us to ensure that the customer's distribution is paid correctly, so that when it reaches the CP credit provider, they will be able to allocate immediately. That is most probably the most important part of our business. And if we fail to do so, we not only fail the company, but we fail the consumer whose funds we administer.
From a personal perspective, I think, when you have the responsibility of dealing with consumers' funds, people are, really distressed. It weighs on you. I think I've got a unique perspective coming out of the sheriff side of it. I've been in houses where people's TVs and furniture and beds were removed, and kids sitting and seeing these things being taken out of their house. So I know what is at stake when someone entrusts us with their money. So personally, it's weighed on me, and I think initially I struggled to, when walking away from the office, to switch off, to make that switch into, now I'm at home, now I need to relax. There's the constant, pressure that you put on yourself. Are things working correctly? Are we doing the things in time that we need to do in terms of our registration? Because we were so manual as well, there were a lot of moving parts, and I like to know what's going on in the business. And when there are so many moving parts and you have to rely so heavily on people, things tend to go south. And I mean, to be fair, we had a lot of issues going through the years. A lot of mistakes were made, and those things, even if you don't like it, you take ownership of the business that you're in, and it weighs on you personally. So I think that's one of the things that one of the drivers that I had to get to the point where we have the systems in place to make sure that those things are mitigated, and that when I go home in the afternoons now, I can switch off and I can rest easy, because I know the automation's done. What needs to happen will happen. And luckily now the issues that come up are few and far between.
Of course, that doesn't mean that there are no issues, but we'll get into that in a moment or two. For now, I wanted to ask Herman a little bit about staff and systems, maybe throw in a cheeky question or two like this one. Are all PDAs the same?
In terms of the work we have to perform, yes. In terms of the individual businesses, no, absolutely not. Well, I think that's one of the advantages we've got, is the PDAs are privately owned businesses, which means that we are competing on the open market against each other and pushing each other forward, which is to the benefit of all parties involved. But we've got such a brilliant board and shareholder structure that, at any point, you can pick up the telephone and soundboard against them. We've got a lot of passionate, let's say, training-orientated people. I'm lucky that, if I look at the executive committee that works with me, three of the five are extremely passionate about training and want to consistently train their staff. Most of our staff that we currently have in the business have been with us for more than 5 years. I think we had our year-end function last year, and I asked everyone that's been with the company less than 5 years to stand up, and I think there were 3 people. So we've got an extremely stable staff base.
I'm William Caesar Bennett. I'm born and bred in the Eastern Cape in Queenstown. This year it's going to be 10 years working at DC Partner. I love it, man. It's been a interesting journey. I come from a public sector and I was scared of the unknown. Everybody said, don't move to the private sector. It's not nice. Took a leap of faith. After a month, I realized I made one of the best decisions of my life.
We offer, people training courses that the work pays. That gives them, additional tools to do their work. One of the things that we've always, prided ourselves on is that you can walk in here in a very junior position. You can work yourself up to an executive position.
My name is Pernell Meyer. I'm born and bred in this lovely scenic city of George. I'm a motivated and disciplined person, and I can truly say that I am the product of DC Partner. I've been developed and trained and mentored here at this awesome company.
My name is Gerard Deisel, as some people like to call me Mr. Finwise at DC Partner. And I joined DC Partner in September 2012. I started off in the client relations division initially, and when the Finwise concept was being developed, I was moved over to the development team, and I've been there ever since. They've also allowed me to up my skills and assisted me with further studies in my career.
And that training goes a long way. And it takes a lot of pressure off, us as a management team, if we know that the staff are well trained and they know what they need to do. That makes our job much easier. We can focus on growing the business and taking it forward. So we don't discriminate in training. We don't nitpick, or we don't say training is only for certain people. Every staff member here that's got an appetite to learn and take himself forward, we are very open to that, and we invite that.
DC Partner has a tremendous impact in both my personal and professional growth. I've grown a lot as I've only started here just after I've matriculated. I was new in business, and then we've moved to corporate. So that's why I like working for DC Partner, and I've stayed so long because they invested quite a lot in my studies, in my growth, like I say, my professional and personal growth as a human being, how I react to people, how I carry myself in life. That treasure, the loyalty and the knowledge that you bring to the table as an employee.
One of the strengths that we do have is because we have so many diverse people in our company, we get a lot of viewpoints, and people think from angles that you didn't necessarily think from. We make sure that staff are being compensated in accordance with what they bring to the table, and I think that's one of the reasons why we see our staff sticking around.
My input is valued. It brings out the most in me, and it inspires me to get my people to do their best. They're trained and they know what they're doing and they love what they're doing. I joined DC Partner in August 2012, so it's nearly 12 years ago.
I joined DC Partners in March 2013, which makes it now a decade.
10 years this year in September.
So I'm nearly 12 years now with the company. Isn't it funny how time flies when you are having fun?
But what exactly do the members of the DC Partner team think about debt review? After all, they work with people in debt review, debt counselors every day.
My honest thoughts of debt review is the program can work for you if you utilize it for the right reasons. I mean, some people can work with money, but life happens, like COVID, and you find yourself in a difficult position, and you are forced to go under the program. But if you follow the program as per the NCA, it will work for you, and you will come out better at the end of the day.
I heard quite a few testimonials of family and friends, how their financial circumstances has been improved and how they've benefited by going under debt review. My advice to consumers who are struggling with debt, I would say, go see a debt counselor. Debt review to over-indebted consumers is a real blessing.
I think it's something that people can use to get out of debt. It's a tool, and the more people do that, the more debt-free they can become eventually. It's a good thing.
Just to be honest with you, I started there. A month later, I realized I'm going to stay. 6 months later, a friend of mine lost a house. And what made me sad that he lost a house, he never confided in his closest friends. And if only he confided in us as his friends, I would have guided him. I would have advised him, go to the nearest debt counselor and go seek help so that we can save a house. And I firmly believe that he would have saved his house. He would not have lived in his car with his mother for 6 months. That was the saddest part. That is what makes me happy being involved in this industry, that this industry saves lives. This industry saves homes. This industry saves families. And the industry steps in with some of the best debt counselors in this country with DC Partner have saved a lot of marriages, have saved a lot of families, have saved a lot of heartache with kids that would have grown up without a home.
So the team at DC Partner obviously is passionate about debt review as we are as debt counsellors. And I've been thinking, as a debt counsellor, these days we're more reliant on the PDAs than ever before for the integration, for the software. But it hasn't always been like that, not in the early days. So I asked Herman a little bit about how that came to be.
I think as times have progressed, I think my sole focus was always just on the payments system. So just making sure that when the money lands in the PDA account, what happens after that was our responsibility. I think it has evolved out of probably necessity that we are more involved in terms of what goes into the systems. And by that I'm meaning, the additional systems that's in the market, the additional services that came into the market. I think things that are happening on the client's applications that no one, I think, envisaged would happen. So we became more involved, I think from a strategic perspective, to make sure that we can manage those on our systems. So I think although our business, our core function and focus is still payments, it has evolved that we have much more interactions with service providers, with third parties, even with the credit providers, that we have interactions with them to make sure that not only do we pay the money, but what happens on their side, is correct, that the money is being dealt with correctly, looking after the consumers. It was probably not planned by the PDA businesses to take on, such an amount of responsibility. But along with the innovation and automation of the systems, it naturally progressed that there was a lot of functions that the DCs or the CPs took on board. We just developed into the systems, and it just kind of ran the businesses for them.
FinWise is our debt review software which we use at DC Partner. So if you're using DC Partner as your PDA, FinWise will be the software provided. We have a lot of different representatives and people in the field. We liaise with the credit providers, with the debt counselors, and we really take their input quite seriously. So we will consider new suggestions and keeping up with different industry stakeholders to hear what the needs are and where we're heading, because it's an ever-evolving industry that we're working in.
Over the years, collections has undergone a complete transformation. Earlier years, it used to be a manual process. Nowadays, with our system FinWise, it's an automated system. All processes are automated, reliable, fast, and accurate.
We're system driven, so you need only a small amount of people to move that money. Without FinWise, we cannot do what we do. We really can't do what we do. It's really I love the system. It's a nice system.
And where we are now, we are lucky enough that our systems have developed to such an extent that they are stable, that they are working. And we're going into the fun part now, which is innovation. So we work closely with the credit providers, and those relationships have strengthened over the years, to the degree that we're doing system integrations with the credit providers now to seamlessly share information.
So we have now seamless integration with the bank, all documentation from the system will go through the API, which makes it more POPI compliant because there's no physical email. And secondly, the bank can respond with COBs or proposal responses. It saves the debt counsellors time with capturing.
I mean, I don't think that, you know, any debt counsellor even goes onto an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document anymore. All of those things are automated within the various systems. So although I think initially it wasn't the intention that we would work so closely with the credit providers, you know, they would receive the money and allocate it, and that's the way it worked for a long time. I think to the benefit of the industry, that relationship has evolved.
We get in contact with those CPs, emails, telephonically, electronic meetings, without fail on a monthly basis. Can guarantee you now there's no way that we're going to meet 9,000 of them in a month. But those that are available, we meet with them electronically. And those that are available on a quarterly basis without fail, we have face-to-face meetings and we engage with them.
Yeah, you know, one of the advantages of the way that we are working, and I think with the POPI Act that was enacted, all of the PDAs, all of our businesses did a lot of work to make sure that consumer data specifically is safe. We use off-site service, cloud-based services with, you know, additional redundancies that are managed again by external companies to make sure that the data that's incoming is safe and available. Those things are backed up, you know, basically on a daily basis. And when we get audited, those audit reports are provided. So I think there's a lot of checks and balances to ensure that if a system should go down, the data is safe. And then from a, you know, consumer funds perspective, the PDAs hold trust accounts. The funds come into trust accounts. It's business trust accounts. And we also have, you know, insurance policies that make sure that consumer funds are protected.
The truth is, the systems have never been better. They've never been easier to use, and it's never been easier to start a practice using them. But that doesn't mean it's easy to be a debt counsellor. Herman gets to see a lot of them, so I asked him about that.
These days, I think it's much more difficult to get a debt counselling firm going. I think with what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, it changed the model and the mindset of not only business owners, but I think the general public as well. So they want to do things more remote. The cost of acquisition of getting a new client on board when they don't walk into your office is getting higher by the day. It's extremely difficult. So imagine you starting a business today, you need to pay rent, you need to have staff members online. There's a lot of things that you need to comply with in terms of your responsibilities. And put on top of that, you didn't expect that you have to pay 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 rand per consumer that before getting them on your book. That makes it extremely difficult. So we do see new businesses succeed. That's people that go into their local communities, go out, you know, on the streets and engage with their communities and get them to walk in the door. That works. But just starting it from cold now, it's extremely difficult. Because we are seeing a situation now where we've got, 230,000 clients. But if you look at the amount of distressed people in the country, we're not even scratching the surface. And we need to ask the question, why are we not growing exponentially with what's happening in the economy? The biggest factor that we see is clients that tend to fall off. Most clients fall off the process because they didn't understand the terms to which they are entering and the commitment that they are making. In my opinion, is there's not enough focus of retaining clients and too much focus on making sure, you know, that the fees get paid. Although that is a massive importance to the debt counsellors, because that essentially brings down that cost of acquisition. What the focus needs to be long term must be on retaining those clients on your books for longer. The benefits of what they are getting far outweighs the negatives of going out of this process, especially if you are contravening the debt review order that was granted. So make sure that every client that signs on knows exactly what they're signing on for. That's the best client you'll ever have. You won't ask questions. You'll get a statement. You'll read the statement. You'll see on the statement exactly what you explained to him, what to expect. And as long as they see what they've expected, they'll continue making payments happily. So the most successful clients we have are the ones that are invested in their clients.
Pretty great advice, actually. So I let Herman get on with some work for a moment or two while I headed down to the cafeteria to grab a Coke Zero. I was going to need the caffeine boosts if we were going to dive into some of the past and present challenges in the industry. I was planning that we would even get to discuss the dreaded F word. That's right, fees.
2007, when the Act came into being, there was no PDAs. I think at that point in time, the regulator's intention was for the DCs to handle the money for the consumers. I don't believe they thought that the scale of the money would be to the extent that it is, and also the number of transactions, the physical transactions. Because I don't think anyone anticipated that the consumers were having 4, 5, 6, 7 different accounts when they got to the debt counsellors. And I think the regulator, and I think under the leadership of Gabriel Davel, then decided that it was necessary for third-party independent companies to operate the funds. And then I think tenders went out, and the PDAs were registered. And then from there, several PDAs came. Some of them went away over the years. And we stuck with the 4 that we have today. So I think importantly also to note is that the PDAs obviously weren't recognised within the ambit of the National Credit Act. And then with the amendments that were published in 2014 that were, I think, enacted in 2016, the PDAs were recognised. In 2015 they were enacted, and I think the implications for the PDAs were enacted in 2016 in March. And since then we have been recognised within the National Credit Act and working under the ambit of the amendments and the regulations, obviously. So I think the PDAs took on a lot, which we were comfortable to do because we are so dependent on the accurate information, to get to the payments part, that we were comfortable in most of the functions of the process happening on our systems, because we then had access to all the data and could make sure that the payments happened seamlessly. So I don't think it was the intention for the PDAs to get to the point where we have so much responsibility for so much of what's going on in the process. It just naturally evolved as we evolved our systems. And one of the, there's several things that has been thrown at the PDAs over the years. One of them are the fact that we were, I think by default, expected to develop the systems for the entire industry, and not only our own systems and the systems for our DCs, but our systems had to enact with the DCRA systems that was run by the Banking Association for a long time. Our systems had to now start communicating with credit bureaus. We had to look at the front-end systems that some DCs have in their offices, work management programs that the DCs have, and also we had to work with the credit providers, where we are now, seeing integrations with their systems as well. So that's one of the things that I don't think we foresaw, and I know, IT development comes at quite a cost, unfortunately, but we were happy to do that because there was mutual benefits to all the parties involved. So that was one of the challenges. Another one was when we started, receiving consumers' funds to distribute. One of the methods that we employed was debit orders, and we were mandated to offer debit orders to consumers or debt counsellors who wanted their clients to pay through debit orders, and no one anticipated the dispute the debit order scenario to come into the industry. And I think from probably 2014 until 2022, that was a massive issue for the PDAs. And I promise you, if I'm saying millions has been lost, it's tens of millions. I promise it's north probably of 50 million rand that the PDAs lost in terms of debit order disputes. There was no reasonable way in the first 5-6 years for us to recoup that funds. Clients were already distressed. If they dispute a debit order and they run over that money, by the time you get to them, that money has been spent, it's gone. So we wrote off a lot of bad debt that had a massive impact on the business and on all the PDA businesses. That's one of the positive things when DebitCheck came into being, where we looked at the authenticated process.
DebitCheck is a secure payment method. It's an authenticated collection system which allows consumers, that gives consumers the power to decide which debit orders they will allow on their bank accounts by authenticating such collection. DebitCheck helped tremendously with regards to the reducing of fraud, and especially for us as a PDA and debt counsellors, disputes. Disputes has been reduced significantly, which enabled the PDA and debt counselors to achieve a much higher success rate with collections.
DebtCheck has mitigated that risk to such a degree that it's manageable now. I won't say palatable, but manageable, that it doesn't pose a risk to the business anymore. So disputes at the current situation, because of the way we are managing it, is not posing a risk to us. But there is still losses, and a loss I do not believe is the responsibility of the PDA to bear. I don't think that was the intention of the Act. I don't think that was in the spirit of the Act for third-party businesses who only come at the end of these negotiations to bear the brunt of financial losses for disputed debit orders. But that's a chapter, I think, in our business specifically, and I can't speak for the other guys, that we've now closed off. We know that what we've got now works. We know that we've mitigated our risk by putting a lot of stuff in place, and we know what's gone is gone.
Are the current PDA fees a problem?
Yes. I think it's extremely difficult for someone to register and work under the current conditions as a PDA. Unfortunately, when the amendments to the Act came and the PDAs were written to the Act, our fees were cut by 65% at that point in time. The pure percentage is less than 1% now. It's closer to 0.9% effectively. And what has an impact on that is all payments that the PDAs do for under 100 Rand accounts are done for free at zero. And that was published in 2014, and as I said, it was enacted for the PDAs in March of 2016. And since, the PDAs have been working under that fee structure, and it's not been reviewed. And we're sitting now in 2024, which is a massive concern. And if you look at the functions that the PDAs, and I'm not talking about us, but all the PDAs perform in the industry, I don't think the industry can afford for the PDAs to work under the risk that we're currently working under in terms of the fee structure. I mean, you would know how many times the DC fees have been looked at over the years since 2015. I can't see how that side can be dealt with, and the PDAs who take the brunt of the responsibility is left hanging when it comes to the fee structure. So that's something that will have to be addressed and addressed quickly. Just by the nature of what's happening in our country, if you look at inflation, if you look at unemployment sitting at 32% unemployment between the ages of 18 and 45, those are significant challenges. The cost of living is continuously going up. The banks don't have any quarrel in moving our pricing up on a yearly basis. Rent goes up, electricity goes up, it's now going to go up again, a couple 12-14%. So being stagnant on a fee structure for 8 years, I don't think it's reasonable, nor I think it's sustainable. So it's not ideal. In terms of managing it from the business perspective, I think one of the positive things that has come out of this is it forces you to be extremely creative, and you have to think very differently about how you approach your operations. So that the fee structure, and you do projections, we know more or less what to expect for a certain period of time, and we did our projections in 2016, 2017 of what the impact of the fee structure was going to be. So already then we knew, by a certain date we were going to run into trouble. So that also expedited a lot of what we planned to do in any event in terms of the automation, in terms of getting rid of, redundancies, unnecessary, redundancies and duplicate work. So that drove to a large degree a lot of the work that we did in terms of automation. And then also, working much more clever in terms of, expenses, taking on, partners who could also, help us in terms of, exposure to the market. And then the only thing that can keep you open is to grow as a business. So you need to get more clients on board. You need to make sure that the clients that do come onto your book make their payments. So we focused a lot on identifying funds, making sure that all the funds that come into the accounts are dealt with quickly and appropriately and effectively, and that it gets paid out accurately, and we don't get funds coming back that we have to deal with again. So all of those things were, I think, born from necessity, which was a good thing. But you can only cut so much, and you can only innovate so much within the bounds of our of the Act, of the regulations, and of our conditions of registration, at some point we need to see an increase in the fees.
What happens if the PDA fees don't change?
I don't think that the PDAs and the businesses that will be able to continue to invest not only in our businesses but in the industry to the degree that we can. You must remember that the old fee structure, the 3% fee structure, was left in place for those clients. So only new clients from the 1st of March 2016 went onto the new fee structure. So essentially those 3% clients were funding a lot of what the PDAs did for a number of years. Now we're now reaching the point where that churn has gone significantly down, and the vast majority of our clients are on the new fee structure. As I said, we can continue to innovate and develop, but at some point you will have to have a look at the compensation. Obviously, we've done a lot of work on this and know more or less where the percentile is, where we can be sustainable and continue to invest in the business. What I can say is whatever is introduced in terms of fees, not only for the PDAs but for the industry, needs to be coupled with a regular review or a yearly inflationary rise. And that will be sustainable, because I can say 20%, but 20% in 5 years' time is effectively not going to be 20% anymore. And that's the issue we had. The 3% would have been sufficient if the 3% was coupled to maybe a yearly inflationary rise. We would have never had any issue. So I think it would be wise to go down that route and say, listen, if you are registered in terms of the rules of the PDA, in terms of the Act, your fees are X and it's coupled to an inflationary rise, whatever is market related or whatever is in the country. And I think that will be sustainable and acceptable to the businesses.
It was good to get Herman's insights on some of the challenges that have come before and the challenges that the PDAs face right now. Next on our agenda, we were heading upstairs to join some of the staff for what was to be an afternoon of fun and celebration. So Herman, we've got champagne, we've got a cake. It says 15 years, what's going on?
So firstly, this is non-alcoholic champagne, just so everyone can rest easy that we can still carry on doing our jobs later today. But yes, we are very fortunate that we are celebrating 15 years in the debt review industry. So the PDA has been going for 15 years now. I think looking at the economic situations in the country, we're very, very fortunate that we are still running a business in today's time. So yes, very happy. At the end of last year, it was 15 years as a registered PDA. Hopefully another 15 years coming up.
It was really nice to see the team so relaxed, celebrating this milestone together. After all, 15 years is pretty significant in any business, especially in this economy. It was also clear that this is a group of people who enjoy being together, enjoy working together. There was a sense of camaraderie that comes probably from facing and overcoming obstacles together. And the team were taking the opportunity to celebrate not only 15 years, but also being recognized by their peers at the Debt Review Awards. And this is something that I wanted to talk to Herman and others on the team about. So we headed back to the office to spend a few minutes talking about the Debt Review Awards. If you're unfamiliar with the Debt Review Awards, think of it as the Oscars of debt review. Each year we meet to recognize the hard work and excellence of those in the field of debt review. And as host, I'm very much involved. It was great to see how well DC Partner did in 2023, and I wanted to ask Herman and others what they thought of the results.
So I don't watch it anymore. We've never won when I've watched it. So I'm staying away as far as possible, but yeah, we were elated.
That first win, I was so happy for us.
And this little piggy goes to?
DC Partners.
To be honest, I couldn't watch it, so I didn't. I was standing in my office, and I heard the people shouting, and it sounded like a happy scream, so I was extremely happy.
I was watching and I was crying. and overjoyed. I was jumping up and down and very proud of DC Partner and the whole team here that made it again for the 3rd year in a row.
And so I was really very happy and ecstatic at that moment. And when that second announcement came,
Second award in this category, as mentioned, it's the top-rated PDA as voted by credit providers. And this little piggy finally goes to
DC Partners.
that was just the cherry on the top. That pushes things to another level with the credit providers that voted us in.
And then I was on my way out my door to go to the staff, and then I heard a second scream, and I couldn't believe it.
Oh my goodness. When they announced us as the winners, I thought that roof is going to lift. It was great.
It is a team effort to get those awards, and they were absolutely going over the moon and celebrating when we got the 2 awards.
And that is literally an effort that has been put together by the whole organization within these buildings that we're in today.
We had some tears from our staff members when we won, because I think, it's just a recognition of the work that we all do, and the importance for us of what we do. It's personal.
And congratulations to DC Partner for that accomplishment. Now, with only a few minutes before I left, I thought I'd ask Hammond about the one thing that keeps me up at night.
If all the PDAs shut down tomorrow morning, I think the industry is done. But the PDAs, and I can speak on behalf of the PDAs, that's not a route that will go down. Because we've, ground the business down to the essentials, we know exactly what to expect in terms of money going out. The revenue we can control to a large degree, and we know what we set ourselves in terms of getting new clients on board, and year on year we've been growing market share, which is fantastic. I think our core business still remains our core, responsibility and focus, but I think we are much more involved in many parts of the industry that I don't think anyone anticipated the PDAs to be. And I think the function of that is critical. But we are still extremely centered around what our responsibility is in terms of the consumers that trust us with their money, because in terms of the act, they don't have to make use of a payment distribution agency. They must take the decision to use our services, and that comes with a responsibility that we all take very seriously. We've set ourselves up to still be relevant in 5 years' time. We've done a lot of work to ensure sustainability of our business. Yes, there are some issues or some challenges that needs to be resolved, but I'm confident that those will be resolved in time. I think it's a matter of time before those challenges are ironed out. But we are fully committed in terms of what we see. We've got a 5-year plan. We've got a long-term position of where we want to take the business to. So I hope to see you guys here again in 5 years' time.
And we hope to be back in 5 years' time. But with that, it was time to hit the road. Safety first. But yes, as I headed to the airport and left the city of George, I started to think about all the things that we'd learned and the people we'd spoken to. I think I came home more optimistic than when I left. It's a team of passionate people, passionate about debt review, passionate about what they do. Somehow they managed to combine people with technology to provide the services, the integrations that make it all possible. And so it was something worth celebrating. 15 years is a spectacular accomplishment. And this group of diverse people bringing their passions and skills together is really what makes DC Partner feel a bit like a family more than a company. And it's something that people are taking notice of. So congratulations to DC Partner on being recognized at the Debt Review Awards. And of course, I want to say thank you very much for joining me as I went on this trip. We've enjoyed spending this time together. Wow, these are really great credits. You should hang around and read them. You know what? I mean, you're loving it so much, it feels funny to end right here. Maybe we'll just do like some bloopers or something. What do you reckon?
Let's go.
Okay. Who are you?
I'm not sure I've got the answer to that one.
The accountants do that with a calculator and an Excel spreadsheet.
They can. Should they? I don't know. He's naughty. Oh, he's so naughty.
All right.
Yeah, that's a very good question. No, I'll take that question on advice. No, I didn't think you guys were wanting to listen to that.
Okay, shall we stop there for today?
Good.
We're losing the line.